My family ignored my 30th birthday, then my sister mocked my outfit, called me Target trash at brunch. So I let her brag. She didn't know my fashion line just partnered with Target and her brand was getting dropped. Her face when she read the email? Birthday cake couldn't compete. I'm Adrian. I just turned 30. I live in Chicago now, but I'm originally from Asheville, North Carolina. It's a pretty place, mountains, artsy neighborhoods, lots of small-town gossip energy. I moved away right after college, mostly to get space from my family. They're not bad people, not in the capital T toxic way we see thrown around here, but they're definitely the kind of people who make you feel invisible if you don't meet their expectations. My parents are both career insurance agents. Very safe people. Not a creative bone in either of their bodies, but they value stability and status. Which is fine, I guess, unless you're me, the artsy one who didn't want to go into business or marry her high school boyfriend or settle down at 25. They always thought I was flaky. I remember when I told them I wanted to study fashion design, my dad laughed and said, like Project Runway? And then there's my sister, Marnie. She's 2 years younger but always acted older than me. The kind of girl who had a 5-year plan at 15. Blonde, polished, tall in that way that makes you feel shorter when she walks into a room, even if you're technically the same height. She was a good daughter. I was the creative one. She got the birthday parties, the graduation slideshow, the framed photos in the hallway. I got polite indifference, mostly. Marnie runs a jewelry brand she started on Etsy a few years ago. It's not my taste, lots of thin gold chains and sunburst designs, but she's smart with her marketing and had some small boutique deals around Charlotte and Raleigh. My parents acted like she'd invented diamonds. Anytime I tried to talk about my work, I'd get lukewarm, that's nice, honey energy at best. It got to the point where I stopped telling them anything. They didn't ask anyway. I hadn't seen them in almost 2 years, partly due to the pandemic, partly due to just life. I'd buried myself in work and built my clothing brand from the ground up. I launched Avery Plus Rue 2 years ago with a capsule of 5 pieces, designed, sewn, and photographed all on my own. It was brutal and lonely, but it was mine. And slowly, it grew. Not viral or overnight, but I built a small following, got picked up by a couple blogs, and started gaining some traction with influencers looking for sustainable, minimalist pieces. The kind of growth that makes you cautiously hopeful, but not enough to brag about. Then, something big happened. About 6 weeks before my birthday, I got a DM from someone on the merchandising team at Target. She said she loved my brand, had bought a few pieces herself, and wanted to talk about a seasonal collaboration. At first, I thought it was a scam. But the call happened. The meetings followed. And 3 weeks before my birthday, I signed a partnership deal to launch a limited collection at 500 Target stores nationwide in the fall. It was under embargo, so I couldn't tell anyone. Not even my closest friends. But inside, I was buzzing. Now here's where it gets layered. Despite everything, I decided to fly back to Asheville for my birthday weekend. I don't know why. Hope, maybe? A part of me, some pathetic, younger version of myself, thought maybe my 30th would be different. That they'd acknowledge it in some way. I didn't want a big thing, just dinner. Or even a card. Instead? Radio silence. I landed on a Thursday night. No one came to pick me up, which I'd expected. My mom texted that morning, "Let us know when you get in." Nothing else. I took a lift to the Airbnb I booked for myself near the River Arts District, close to where I used to hang out in high school. I figured I'd give them Friday to say something, plan something. But Friday came and went with nothing. Not a call. Not a message. Not even a passive-aggressive "what are you up to this weekend" from my mom. I sat alone on my birthday morning eating a leftover cinnamon bun from a cafe. I turned 30 in silence. My phone showed a single message, my college roommate in Chicago saying "Happy birthday, Queen," with a bunch of heart emojis. Not a peep from my family. Still, I tried. I texted them and said I'd made brunch reservations for 11 a.m. at Tupelo Honey downtown. "Would love to see you if you're free," I wrote. It was vague enough to not sound desperate, but enough to make them show up if they had a drop of decency. And they did show up. Marnie, my mom, and my dad. Late, but there. They brought no gifts, no cards, nothing. Just themselves. Marnie was in full Instagram mode, sunglasses, linen shirt, and what looked like a $30 blowout. She barely sat down before she started eyeing me. "This is your birthday outfit," she said. I was wearing a burnt orange blazer and cream wide-leg trousers from my own line. Paired it with some low-profile white sneakers and a tan belt. Understated, but styled. The blazer had structured shoulders and a single tortoiseshell button, one of my favorite pieces I'd made to date. Marnie snorted. "Very Target chic," she said, flipping her menu open. I blinked. "What does that mean?" "You know," she shrugged. "Like elevated clearance rack." She laughed, turning to my mom. "Sorry. I've just seen this blazer on, like, 5 girls at the Biltmore Mall." I smiled. I didn't even blink. "That's the idea," I said. "Right," she said. "Accessible fashion. We love it." Then she launched into a 20-minute brag about her new boutique collab. Her jewelry line had landed a seasonal spot in 50 Target stores in the Southeast. She described it like it was Vogue's September issue. "It's just small scale right now," she said, sipping her mimosa. "But I'm talking with a buyer next week about going national." Fingers crossed. I nodded politely. Asked her a few questions. Let her gloat. She had no idea that just across town, the Target rep she was trying so hard to impress had already chosen the next seasonal partner, and it wasn't her. They'd chosen me. And her line was getting phased out. Sales hadn't met expectations. Inventory was lagging. But none of this had gone public yet. I wasn't allowed to say a word. So I just smiled, picked up my eggs, and let her run her mouth. At the end of brunch, I paid for everyone. Left the tip. My dad didn't even try to stop me. No one said thank you. We stood awkwardly outside the restaurant for a minute before Marnie said, "Well, I hope 30 treats you well. It's a weird age. You're either doing great or completely lost." Then she got into her car and drove away. I walked back to my Airbnb alone. And then Monday came. That Monday morning, I was already up before sunrise. I hadn't slept much. My mind had been replaying brunch on a loop, the silence, the smugness, the way Marnie had thrown that Target trash jab with zero hesitation, like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. And the worst part? No one had defended me. Not my dad, not my mom. They just let it hang in the air, like it was somehow true. I made coffee and sat down with my laptop, trying to ground myself with work, the one area of my life where I actually felt in control. My inbox was flooded with the usual vendor follow-ups, photos from the last shoot, social media approvals. I was halfway through deleting spam when I saw the subject line, "Congratulations on the announcement, Target X Avery Plus RUE, it had gone live." The embargo was lifted. The press release had hit industry blogs and a few lifestyle sites overnight. My publicist had done her job. We were featured in Who What Wear, Pop Sugar, and even a snippet in Fast Company. The images from our fall lookbook were already on Target's media hub. Influencers were starting to res-hair the launch teaser. Our Instagram DMs were blowing up. I just sat there and stared. Avery Plus Rue was going to be in 500 stores across the US. A real, tangible, national rollout. Pieces with my name on the tags. Garment racks with my sketches turned real. It felt surreal. It also felt calm. Like I'd been holding my breath for years, and now I could finally exhale. And then my phone buzzed. I looked down. Marnie. I didn't answer. She didn't leave a voicemail. 2 minutes later, she texted, "Did you seriously get a Target collab?" A beat later, "You knew at brunch and didn't say anything?" Then a third message, less punctuation, more venom, "That's actually so fake, Adrian." Wow. I just stared at the screen, still processing the fact that this was how she found out. Of course, she had to make it about me being fake, not her being presumptuous or cruel. I hadn't lied. I hadn't rubbed it in. I'd sat through her digs in silence. I let her call my outfit Target trash while knowing Target had called it exactly what American women want right now. But her text wasn't the moment. That came an hour later. My friend Zoe, who freelancers in fashion PR and has her ear everywhere, forwarded me a copy of an internal Target memo. The subject line said, "End of cycle termination, vendor list, Q2 closures." I opened the PDF. There it was, third row down, vendor, sun-thread jewelry phase-out date, end of Q2 rationale, underperformance/low sell-through. Zoe's message underneath just said, "You didn't hear this from me," smiley face. Apparently, Target was dropping her line at the end of the quarter. No renewal. No reorders. Quiet phase-out. I sat in silence for a few minutes. Then, I forwarded the email to myself. I didn't respond to Marnie's texts. I didn't gloat. I didn't call anyone. I just opened Instagram. Notifications were flooding in. My announcement post had gone live, a simple photo of me holding one of the capsule jackets, a slate gray piece with structured shoulders and hidden pockets, standing on a Chicago rooftop. Caption: thrilled to finally share that Avery Plus Rue is partnering with Target this fall. A collection close to my heart, years in the making. Designed for movement, made to last. Already hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments. Friends, strangers, old classmates. Even 2 of my professors from design school had left messages. And then, buried in the mix, I saw her. Marnie. She had commented, "Wow. Congratulations. Didn't see this coming." No emoji. No sarcasm. Just words. From her? That was a big deal. Almost a concession. I didn't reply. About 2 hours later, I got a call from my mom. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, honey," she said, carefully. "We just saw the news." "Yeah," I said. "Pretty big day." There was a long pause. "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked, though it didn't sound like curiosity. It sounded like an accusation. "I wasn't allowed to," I said, keeping my voice even. "It was under embargo until this morning." "But you let us sit there at brunch." Marnie was talking about her work and you didn't say a word. She called my clothes Target trash. "What exactly would you have liked me to say?" Another long pause. "You know how she is." "She didn't mean it that way." "I know exactly how she is," I said, not angry, just done. "I've known since I was 10. "Well," my mother cleared her throat. "We're proud of you. It's a big accomplishment." I didn't say anything. She added, "You could have given your sister a heads up, though. She got an email today. About her line getting dropped." "That's not my responsibility," I said flatly. "She didn't give me a heads up before spending half of brunch talking down to me." Mom sighed. "I'm just saying, be gracious. You've always been sensitive." And there it was. The old script. Me, the sensitive one. Not Marnie, the rude one. Not my parents, the neglectful ones. Me. Always me. I swallowed hard. "I have to go, Mom. I've got a Zoom in 5. "Okay," she said. "Call us later?" "We'll see." I hung up. And that was it. The air felt clearer. Not triumphant, exactly. Not victorious like a movie climax. Just like I didn't need anything from them anymore. Let them stew. Let them say whatever they want. I didn't need to prove myself to anyone at that brunch table ever again. I already had. And they knew it. After that call with my mom, I sat still for a long while. It's funny how silence can be louder than shouting sometimes. My apartment, usually this cozy cocoon of quiet and control, suddenly felt like a pressure chamber. All the words I didn't say during that brunch, all the years I tried to win their attention, their respect, their validation, it just settled over me like dust. I hadn't realized how heavy it had become until that call let me set it down. It didn't feel good. Not really. Just different. I didn't respond to Marnie's comment. I didn't like it, didn't reply, didn't screenshot it or share it with friends. I just let it sit there, because I didn't need to do anything with it. That silence, again, it did the work for me. The rest of that Monday blurred into press calls and emails. My phone buzzed with congratulations all day. A couple small boutiques I'd worked with previously reached out with interest in expanded wholesale. I got 3 interview requests from industry podcasts. Even an influencer who had once politely ghosted my brand when I sent her a free sample DM'd me to ask if I'd be open to a collaboration. I should have been thrilled. And part of me was. But another part kept drifting back to Asheville. To that brunch. To the way my dad didn't say a word while my sister openly mocked me. To the way my mom just smiled and sipped her drink, acting like I wasn't even there. Why did I still care? The next few days passed in a fog of meetings and planning. I was flying back to Chicago that Thursday, and part of me wanted to just lie low until then. But I couldn't avoid it completely. Marnie texted again Tuesday night. Okay, I was a brat. Congrats. Really? Then 2 hours later, honestly though, you could have warned me about Target. I had no idea. Then, Mom's been weird about everything. Think she's embarrassed. That last one made me pause. Embarrassed? About what, me succeeding? Her favorite daughter getting knocked down a peg? I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I realized I didn't have anything to say. I didn't owe her comfort. I didn't owe her grace just because she was suddenly uncomfortable. I had been uncomfortable for years, trying to make space for myself in a family that only ever made room for one daughter. By Wednesday afternoon, I got a call from my dad. That was rare. He's not a phone guy, never has been. Growing up, if I called him while I was at college, the calls lasted under 2 minutes and usually ended with "alrighty then" or "welp, keep at it." So when his name popped up on my screen, I actually stared at it for a few seconds before answering. Hi, Dad. Hey there, kiddo. He cleared his throat. So. Big week, huh? I could hear him pacing, like he'd rehearsed what he was going to say. Saw the announcement. Your mom showed me the article online. Looks like a real big deal. It is, I said. I've been working on it for a long time. Yeah, he said, drawing the word out. Yeah, you have. There was a beat of silence. I didn't know you were doing that well. I held the phone away for a moment and stared at it. That line. It caught me off guard. Not because of what he said, but because of how he said it. Like he'd just now realized I'd been building something real all this time. Like maybe he was trying to rewrite how he'd treated me, now that the outcome was respectable. I've been doing well for a while, I said. You just weren't paying attention. He didn't respond for a few seconds. Well, he said eventually, I guess we missed it. That's on us. I waited. Nothing more came. Thanks for the call, I said. Sure, he said. Just wanted to say I'm proud. You did good, Adrian. Thanks, Dad. And then we hung up. I sat with that conversation longer than I care to admit. Because for as short as it was probably the most emotionally open exchange I'd ever had with him. Not that it made anything okay. But it was something. And at 30, I guess I've learned to stop expecting grand gestures from people who've never given them. Sometimes, all you get is a cracked door. Whether you walk through it or not, that's up to you. Thursday came and I packed my bags. The Airbnb was already tidied up. I hadn't seen any of them since brunch. Marnie had stopped texting after Tuesday night. My mom hadn't called again. I figured I'd leave quietly, the same way I'd arrived. But just before I called a car to the airport, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Marnie standing there, arms crossed, wearing oversized sunglasses and holding a takeout bag from Early Girl Eatery, one of our old favorite spots growing up. She looked less polished than usual. Hair in a bun, no makeup, hoodie over leggings. No curated outfit. No camera-ready smile. I figured you were leaving today, she said, pushing her sunglasses up. Thought you might want something for the flight. I didn't say anything. Just stepped back and let her in. She handed me the bag, smelled like breakfast biscuits, and sat down at the little kitchen table by the window without asking. Just like old times. Or rather, like how it should have been, if we'd ever really had old times. She looked around the Airbnb. This place is cute, she said. Very you. Still, I said nothing. She let the silence stretch before finally blurting, okay, I was awful. Still nothing. I wasn't just rude, I was mean. And I knew it while I was doing it, and I did it anyway. I finally raised an eyebrow. Then why'd you do it? She looked down at the table, pressing her fingers into the grain of the wood. I think. I wanted to believe you weren't doing better than me. I let out a sharp breath through my nose. Honest. And sad. I saw your outfit, she continued. And it scared me. Because it looked better than anything I could make. And I knew, even before you said a word, that you were doing better. Like, you weren't trying to prove anything anymore. You didn't need to. I leaned against the wall, arms folded. Watching her. Letting her unravel. And I just panicked. So I tried to take you down a notch. Like always. Because that's what we were raised to do, right? I get praised, you get tolerated. That's how it's always been. She looked up then, eyes a little wet. I don't want to keep being that person. I didn't know what to say to that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I appreciated hearing it, finally, even if it was years late. She looked at me again, smaller this time. I'm really happy for you, Adrian. I mean that. The words sat between us like a gift I wasn't ready to unwrap. But I nodded. Slowly. Thanks. She stood. Adjusted her hoodie. Looked like she might say something else, but thought better of it. I'll let you go, she said. Have a good flight. I followed her to the door. And just before she left, she looked over her shoulder and added, I meant what I said. I don't want to keep being that person. Then she left. And I stood there, breakfast biscuits in hand, unsure whether to cry, laugh, or just go on living. I chose the last one. For now. I didn't cry after Marnie left. I didn't eat the biscuit either. I wrapped it in foil and packed it with my things. I don't know why. Maybe it was symbolic, maybe I just wasn't hungry. But something about it felt like a keepsake from a conversation I'd waited years to have, one that wasn't perfect, wasn't everything I needed, but was more than I thought I'd get. The Lyft driver was chatty, asking about my trip, the weather, whether I was visiting family or just passing through. I said, a little of both, which felt close enough to the truth. At the airport, I did what I always do, ordered an overpriced latte, wandered around the Hudson News, and settled into a seat near the gate. While I waited, I opened my laptop and started writing an email. Not to Marnie. Not to my parents. To the creative director at Target. I'd been mulling it over for weeks, but after the past few days, I finally felt clear on it. I didn't just want this partnership to be another blip, a quiet, polite success. I wanted to use it. My email was simple. I've been thinking about doing a spotlight campaign for this launch, not just about fashion, but the stories behind the women who wear it. Real stories. About growth, resilience, what it means to take up space. I think it could really resonate, especially if we lean into the contrast of where we start versus where we end up. Let me know if you'd be open to a meeting. She replied within the hour. I love this idea. Let's talk this week. The plane took off just after sunset. I watched the Carolina mountains flatten into farmland, then haze, then clouds. I closed my eyes and let myself breathe it all in, everything I'd walked through in a few short days. When I got back to Chicago, things moved fast. We met. The Target team loved the concept. They gave me space to develop a mini campaign alongside the product launch, from unseen to unstoppable. It featured women from all over the country, first-generation graduates, single moms, late bloomers, even an older woman who'd started her own bakery at 62. It was subtle, sleek, and deeply personal. We shot it in 3 cities, using non-models. We kept the clothes front and center, but made sure the stories came through. When the campaign launched in mid-October, something strange happened. It went viral. Not in a flashy TikTok trend kind of way. But the kind of viral where people shared it in their group chats, where it got picked up by morning talk shows, where women wrote paragraphs in the comments thanking us for finally showing what strength really looks like. Sales surged. Target increased our distribution. My social media following quadrupled in a month. And then something else happened. A few weeks after launch, I got a Google alert. Marnie's jewelry brand had posted a long-winded farewell post on their Instagram, talking about how they were shifting focus and taking time to evolve the vision. I clicked through to the comments. They were kind. Her followers, mostly women, wished her well. But the truth was clear, she'd been dropped. Her deal had ended. And rather than address it directly, she was spinning it into something digestible. Classic Marnie. I didn't gloat. I didn't even message her. But I did do one thing. There was a small fashion event coming up in Charlotte. A curated maker's market, invitation only, featuring emerging Southern designers. I got a formal invite. Not surprising, Target's name carried weight now. What was surprising was the vendor list. Sunthread Jewelry had been one of the recurring names at that market for years. They weren't on the list this time. I emailed the organizer, a woman named Carlene who'd been on a panel with me once before. If you have space for one more small table, I'd love to feature a few of my original pieces, pre-capsule lines. Just something for locals to see where it all started. She replied immediately. We'd be honored. Welcome to the table. And so, one cool November weekend, I flew down to Charlotte and set up a modest booth at the very market that used to be Marnie's stomping ground. I didn't plaster my name on everything. I didn't roll in with a film crew or act like a celebrity. I brought 5 racks of limited run designs, each with a small printed story tag about the inspiration behind it. I wore the same burnt orange blazer Marnie had mocked. I smiled. I greeted. I listened. People came. Young girls, moms, artists, students. Some of them recognized the name. Some didn't. It didn't matter. What mattered was this: late in the afternoon, I saw her. Marnie. She came with a friend, hovering near a table 2 rows away. I saw her scan the room, then pause when her eyes landed on my booth. Her mouth moved, something to her friend, and then she walked toward me, alone. She stopped at the edge of my display. We didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, finally, she nodded at one of the jackets. You remade that one, she said. From college, right? I nodded. Yeah. Adjusted the sleeves. Shortened the hem. She nodded again, slower. Then, it's better now. There was no sarcasm in her voice this time. No performance. I didn't smile. I didn't offer her a discount or ask how she was doing. I just said, thanks. She stayed another minute, looking over the display. Then she left. Not with fanfare, not with shame. Just a quiet departure. And that? That was enough. Because for the first time in a very long time I wasn't chasing her. Or their approval. Or the fantasy that someday they'd see me for who I am. They already had. And I knew it.